I will introduce different general concepts related to the scientific method. To do so, I made this conceptual map based on the article linked below this video and written by Craig Rusbult. In the center of this conceptual map, the two main processes that are carried out during a scientific process are presented. In the first instance, an experiment, or an observation, is carried out, followed by the inference of a theory. Conversely, and we'll see it later, it is also possible to first have a theory and then to confirm it via experimentation. In general, there is a process of retroactive action between experiments and theory. Scientists will proceed with several experiments and observations to refine the theory. We notice that experiments and observations are generally done on the physical world, whereas theory belongs only to the mental world. In this conceptual map, I will rather concentrate myself on concepts related to the scientific method. First, and as you can see on the right side of the picture, a scientist can decide whether he wants to understand the physical world at a large or at a small scale. In the second case, he assumes other larger scale theory to be true. This scale concept characterizes a theory. We can call it a large scale, generalized, or a mega theory, or in the other case, a small scale, specialized, or subtheory. A theory is generally used to make predictions with if-then operations, on the right in orange. Those if-then operations go like this. If Y happens, then we obtain X. This if-then operation can be done via an extrapolation or by running a model which is the result of an equation, and so on. Once a theory is formulated, it must be evaluated, and a confidence score from high to low will be given to it. This process can be seen in the conceptual map in yellow and bright yellow and green. There are several ways to evaluate a theory. Craig Rusbult tried to give an exhaustive list that we summarize in the light green rectangles. As we can see on the bottom left of our conceptual map, the first procedure is to consider influence of cultural and personal factors such as personal desires, group pressures, practical considerations, philosophical and religious views, metaphysical perspectives, cultural thought style, and personal habits. Conceptual factors such as internal consistency and structural simplicity of a theory can also be considered to evaluate a theory. We can also perform what Craig Rusbult called a reality check of a theory by an experiment. This notion of reality check will be discussed later. A similar evaluation that is often carried out in science is the validation of a theory. Finally, several theories can be used to make a prediction that would be compared to the prediction made by the theory which is tested. Yet, this type of evaluation does not indicate the quality of the theory, but can be used to dismiss one of them. We also notice that theory evaluation can be used to refine the theory. The physical world can be observed by means of experiments, and this is a way to test a theory. Experiments can be roughly divided into those that are performed under controlled conditions, the so-called laboratory conditions, and those that cannot be controlled, for instance, tracking the position of the stars in the sky. All experiments are also subject to the material limitation, mainly this refers to whether it is used to gather the raw data, on the top right in purple. In this respect, we can talk about our own human senses or using measurement instruments, for instance, telescope and light sensors to stay with the astronomical example. Finally, and as you can see on the top left corner, performing an experiment can be motivated by several reasons. An exogenous reason, something coming from the outside such as new discovery or new event. An endogenous reason, something that motivates the researcher to check someone else's work, to get funding, to fill a gap in current knowledge, to be in a new situation, to run a crucial experiment, to test reproducibility, or to resolve an anomaly. And finally, it can also be motivated for a methodological reason, to obtain better or more valid results by adding more information to remove bias. Sensitivity analysis can also be carried out. In conclusion, Craig Rusbult set up a conceptual field that we can consider primary for scientific method description. To summarize, a theory has a scale and if-then operations. It can produce predictions. It can be also evaluated either by testing other theories, questioning researcher influences, or by checking conceptual factors or through a reality check. Experiments and observations vary from controlled to not controlled situations. We have seen the different reasons that can motivate the researcher to make an experiment or an observation, and that the later are done with measurements. In general, I find this description as a good start for epistemological analysis. Actually, that's the reason I decided to summarize Craig Rusbult's article in this video. Let's now have a look on the initial thoughts to build a theory. To construct a theory, we can ask ourselves whether we'll make first the experiments or the observation, and then if we infer a theory, or if we'll make the theory first and to set the experiments afterwards. In both cases, a bias is induced. In the case where the experiments or observations are made firstly, a bias on the theory that will fit the experiment may be induced. In the second case, where the theory is first defined, the induced bias will rather be on the way experiments and observation are set up to fit the theory. In both cases, Craig Rusbult noticed that those biases are caused by factors that can be cultural, conscious, unconscious, or personal. In the process of theory evaluation, Craig Rusbult introduced the reality check that is used to test a theory regarding experiments. Reality check consists in making predictions from the theory and comparing them with experiments and observations in order to validate and eventually to improve the theory. Craig Rusbult made the distinction between two types of theories. A descriptive theory describes a phenomenon. In other words, it answers the question of what is it happening. An explanatory theory, on the other hand, tries to give the cause-effect of a phenomenon. In addition to answer the question of what is it happening, it also tries to answer the question of why is it happening. According to Craig Rusbult, an explanatory theory tries to explain the system composition, that is, what it is, and the system generation, what it does. Finally, he noticed that semi-explanatory theories also exist. Those correspond to a mix between explanatory and descriptive theories. Another way to see the difference between explanatory and descriptive theories is the position of the if-then operation. In a descriptive theory, the if is situated on the experiment and the then is situated rather on the product of the experiment. To illustrate this, we can consider the following example. If we consider a chemical experiment, the mentality of a descriptive theory would be to describe the production of several chemical elements. If we mix these chemical products, then we obtain this chemical product. In explanatory theory, the then operator is rather situated on the experiment, and the if would be set before the experiment. The if operator is rather in a prior position to the experiment. It answers the question of cause to effect. If we have a specific event, that would lead us to the experiment. To keep with the chemistry example, this type of theory would try to find out which product would have been used for a given chemical mixture. According to Craig Rusbult, This type of theory is generated by a process of creative thinking in which imagination is guided by the logic of reality checks.